Welcome everyone to our How to Do It segment, where we talk about how to perform certain strategies for the nutrition farming concept, and we also talk about why you might choose to do those things. And what we're going to talk today about is how you can make your own little worm farm. Now, traditionally on my farms we've used a concept with a 1,000-litre shuttle. You may see them in the background there, where you can make your own worm bed and you isolate off the bottom segment which captures the liquid and so forth. But this way works better, and I learned it on a visit to a farm in central Queensland, and the guy had wonderful results with this extraction technique. And so rather than the leach shade model where a few unfortunate escapees leach through into that liquid at the bottom of the old school containers that we used to use, this is the idea of making your vermicast and then extracting it, which we'll teach you to do later. So this is just a very simple on-farm vermicasting strategy that works really, really well. So essentially we start with some landscape fabric, and the reason for that is that you try and choose a place that's shaded, because worms don't like sunlight, and for that reason that tree that's shading it will feed up and come and eat that vermicast. Absolutely, trees love vermicast, and the roots will come right to the top of the pile that you've made and just consume all the goodies out of there. So we're shutting the roots out with this landscaping fabric. And then we're going to begin the process. First of all, perhaps I'll talk about why you might make vermicast. And this critical thing here to be aware of is that if we look at the definition of science as adherence to natural laws and principles, and then we look at nature and we say, okay, we're learning from nature, what's the central principle of nature? And the central principle of nature, without a doubt, is biodiversity. The more, the merrier is how nature works. And what we're doing with the wonderful exudates, understand, earthworms incubate their own organisms in their gut. They don't come from anywhere else. If you haven't got earthworms in your soil, and many of you don't have that almost wondrous range of beneficial organisms that include nitrogen fixers and phosphate solubilisers and cellulose digesters and organisms that stimulate other beneficials in the soil. They're called cofactor organisms and so forth. You haven't got any of them if you have no earthworms, and most people don't have earthworms left in their soil. So this is why there's a whole emerging business of liquid vermicasts, which are essentially a microbial inoculum. There's some goodies in there in terms of nutrition, but mostly it's about those unique microbes that only come from earthworms. So we're going to make them, we're going to grow them ourselves, and then extract that microbial soup is the principle. Now, what does that include? Well, as I mentioned, there are nitrogen fixers, quite a number of nitrogen fixers. There are organisms that can create humus more rapidly and more efficiently. There are multiple organisms that produce compounds that stimulate plant growth and stimulate root growth, and organisms that stimulate, organisms called immunoelicitors. There are at least a dozen in vermicast that are recognised immune elicitors, which means they stimulate plant immunity. And the exciting thing about anything that boosts immunity is that, without exception, immunoelicitors boost yield, which is a nice outcome. So let's look at how we might make our own worm farm on our own farms. And the starting point is to use a combination. This is what I learnt in that farm in central Queensland. A combination of three things: lucerne hay, or alfalfa for those in the US, but lucerne we call it here. Lucerne hay, conventional grassy hay, in this case we're using Rhodes grass hay, and cow manure. And we're just going to make a layer of each of those, and we're going to alternate the layers to make our windrow. So let's begin that. Karl's going to give me a hand here, and we're going to begin with the lucerne, the high protein lucerne, and I'll help you with some of that myself. We're making our layer of lucerne. We're going to make our windrow about 1 metre wide. Because lucerne, if you know about lucerne, you'll know that there is actually no mulch better than lucerne. Lucerne is the ultimate fertilising mulch. Of course, it's got that wonderful level of protein, and everything loves it. The organisms like protozoa, if we were to test that lucerne, is brimming with all three varieties of protozoa. And protozoa, of course, is the favourite food for earthworms. So they're going to go crazy with that lucerne component. With the protozoa component of lucerne, we'll make this a little longer. Open another bale. This is our first layer, and with each layer we're going to wet it down thoroughly. So we'll get the hose going now. And we're going to make it thoroughly moist. Every layer, as we make the layer, we're going to wet it down completely. It's probably going to be long enough now. It's very important this first stage because we're not going to add moisture very often. We really want to have that moisture right through this. So this pile will begin to cook. I'll let you continue watering that if you like. The pile will begin to, it's obviously it's got a good source of protein. Bacteria are going to get into it and it's going to warm. We're not putting the earthworm straight into this pile. We wait till it cools. So it'll go through the initial thermophilic stage of a composting process where it warms up. And when it's warm enough to put your hand in comfortably, then you can add the earthworms. And what you do is add the earthworms to one end of the pile after we've made our layer of 3 and we build it up to a height of about 1 metre. Earthworms are put into one end and they'll slowly work their way through that moist, protein-rich pile. Well, that should be good. But they'll slowly work their way through that pile and you follow behind them and collect their castings, and then we'll teach you how to extract the goodies from those castings. So loosen layers done, we've got all the protein there, we've put our moisture, we'd probably need a little more moisture than that, but that'll do for the demonstration. Now we're going to do our hay. So we're going sort of carbon, nitrogen, we've done our nitrogen layer, we're putting some carbon on there now. And we'll do the same thing, we'll water it down as we're putting it on there. So we've got our protein, we've got our carbon, and we've got our carbon and our nitrogen, the obvious normal way that you make a compost pile. And now we're going to add our manure, our cow manure. So sometimes people build these right next to a cattle yard, so they've got a ready access. The farm that I saw, he put it under a tree right next to a cattle yard, so he had all the cattle manure, cow manure available and he started with 20 metres. And it was so successful that he just kept on expanding. You follow behind the worms and you just add, when they reach the end of the pile, you add on to that pile. And he had probably 60 metres of windrow, 80 metres of windrow. And you could take your hand into any part of that pile and just poke your hand through the thick layer of hay. You always have a thick layer of hay on the top to keep the light out. Put your hand in and just pull out this hand brimming, filled with composting worms. And I said, you realise you've probably got $50,000 to $60,000 worth of worms that you could sell in this 60 to 80 metre pile. And his wife said, I keep telling him that. And he said, no one touches my worms. He'd realised the value of these little fertiliser machines on the farm and had had tremendous results with the extract that he was making from his do-it-yourself worm farm. So we've done our hay now, we've wet it down, we've got our lucerne, we've got our hay, and now we put our cow manure. We do a similar kind of layer, use all those bags. And then we repeat the process. We do a layer of lucerne, a layer of hay, a layer of cow manure, and then at the top of that layer, we'll do our thick layer of straw that protects them, that gives them that protection from sunlight, which they're not keen on. So the process now, we'll repeat that process. So what we're demonstrating, of course, is a very, very small little demonstration model. You picture this as a windrow extending for however long you choose to extend it. You can wind it back around on itself if you've got an area that has got confined areas, so it just winds back around. We'll put the worms into this end. After it's cooled down, it'll warm up over the next few days, and when it's comfortable to put your hand in there, then we'll add the worms. I'll show you the worms in a moment, and they'll slowly, it'll take a few weeks for them to work their way through, and you harvest the castings behind them and make your extract, and you will be really, really surprised at what you can achieve with that. Okay, so now we're going to do our final layer, a thick layer, as I mentioned, of the Rhodes grass on the top of the hay, and that's of course thick enough to block out sunlight. Then we're going to let it start warming. It's nice and moist the whole way through. It'll begin cooking, it'll begin the first stage of composting, and when it's cool enough to put our hand in comfortably in, we're going to add the earthworms. So while Karl's watering down, we've completed our pile now. This is typically how high you would make it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to show you the worms that we will add once it cools down. So, you know, typically you might put something like 1 kilo of worms into a pile, and then depending on how fast you want it to happen, if you've got more worms available, the more you put in, the faster they'll process that pile for you. But in this instance, we're talking about, you know, a bunch of worms that we will hopefully stay for us for the next week or two until it cools down, and then we'll add them into our pile. We've got a bucket of them here. We've got about 1 kilo. Okay, so that, my friends, is how you make your own vermicast.